If you share the link, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Is it on already on Facebook? I'm gonna check.
2 seconds. Yeah, Facebook is on. Okay.
Okay, 1 second. Just give me a second so I could share it. Uh-oh.
Het staat erboven hoor, live op Facebook. Dus het is goed.
Okay.
You can see it afterwards.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sharing it on my Facebook so people could see it from my Facebook as well.
Oké. We gaan beginnen. Wil iemand zijn hand opsteken mocht Engels een probleem zijn? Want Chaja spreekt wel Nederlands, maar ze vindt Engels wel een stukje makkelijker. Is er iemand die er een probleem mee heeft als we het in het Engels doen? Nee, dat dacht ik ook wel. Dat komt wel goed. Oké. Welcome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, Chaja. First of all, I would like to dedicate this evening for a refuah shlema for my nephew who is in operation right now. His name is Ben Sion Ben Brachalea. That he should have a successful operation and an easy recovery, and that he'll be healed totally with this one operation, Bezrat Hashem. And I also want to dedicate this evening Le'ilui Nishmat Michael Saadia ben Moshe HaKohen. That's one of my best friend's husband who died from corona, and all we can do for him is do good things in his name. So that's what I want to do this evening. So for his neshama, it will be extra blessings that we're sending up to him. Okay, Chaja Evers, welcome.
Hello, goedenavond.
It's very exciting to have you here. In many ways. Actually, we should tell a little bit about the background of how we met, because that was 27 years ago when I was teaching in Crown Heights in Bet Rivka in the girls' school, first grade. And I had a whole class of girls, and I was teaching the Yiddish class. There were 2 Yiddish classes. I think there were 5 classes of the same grade, first grade.
120 kids.
Yes, and 2 of the 5 classes were Yiddish classes. So we were teaching in Yiddish and teaching the girls Yiddish. And one of my students was Chaja. At that time called Halberstam. And it's very, very interesting as a teacher to years later meet your student as a married lady, a mother of children, and blossoming, you know, like it's very, very special. So that you are here tonight, that's also very special because we can show and tell the people what happened in between those years. Okay, so I guess I start my connection with you when you were 6 years old. How about if you tell us a little bit about your youth growing up in Crown Heights, New York?
Okay, so first of all, it's really an honor to be here, and it's nice to sit here again with you. And every time I see you, we always mention how you were my teacher, and I still remembered. And I always actually I always tell this to Sarah, that when I met my husband, the first thing I actually told him was that my first grade teacher, and first grade is equivalent to groep 3, that my first grade teacher was from Holland. So he said, who? So I said, Mora Sara Katzman, Yuf Sara Katzman. So he said, oh, she was also my Yuf. So
Also first grade teacher.
So you were the first person we spoke about when we met, me and my husband, on our first date. So I think that's also funny. But you were an amazing teacher. I remember so many of the things that you taught me. I was 6 years old, like you said, and I actually didn't know any Yiddish before I came into your class because we spoke Hebrew at home. So you introduced me to the language of Yiddish, and that's how I understand it. And since I moved to Holland, I cannot speak it anymore because I keep mixing it up with Dutch, but it was actually a gateway in helping me learn how to speak Dutch. So nu ik kan ook in Nederlands praten door de les dat jij hebt me gegeven in Yiddish. It was a good start, a good head start. It's a lot of words and are similar, and especially when you read it. So it was a real help for me. So it's nice that we can come full circle and acknowledge it in front of other people as well. So growing up in Crown Heights, it's a Chabad community in Brooklyn. I had a really nice childhood, wonderful big family. We are 8 siblings in my family, 6 girls and 2 boys, but we were like kind of 4 older and 4 younger. And I'm a twin. I have a twin sister. Her name is Sarah also. And we grew up, you know, in a neighborhood full of Jewish people, and I went to an all-girls school, and that was also an amazing experience. And maybe we could talk about it soon, when like further on in the interview. But I really wanted to share about my school experience going to an all-girls school, high school, 500 girls, Chabad girls, and what an amazing experience that was. And yeah, I mean, growing up in the neighborhood of Chabad Lubavitch headquarters, it was always busy, always happening. There were always many guests coming, and my parents had a very open home. We always had people sleeping in the guest rooms and in the basement, and sometimes we had people sleeping on the couch. Always full Shabbos tables with many people, and so many people I meet through the years say, oh, we ate in your parents' house 10 years ago, and I don't even remember because it was just so many people. And, you know, we really grew up with this idea that our home is not just our place, but it's a place for many people to come and join in and be part of our home and our family. And that's how we grew up. Baruch Hashem.
Very nice. Now, maybe you also want to share a little bit about your parents. I know that your father had a very special job, special connection with the Rebbe. Maybe you can tell something about that and how that was like part of your, or if it was part of your family's
identity.
Right.
So it's actually really interesting because both my mother and my father do not come from Chabad backgrounds. My father grew up in the Hasidic group of Tzans, Kleisenberg, which is, you know, there's many different Hasidic groups from rabbis that came from Poland in the 1800s, 1900s. And after the war, they all kind of were dispersed. Some restarted their Hasidic courts in New York, and many of them in Israel. So my father comes from the Halberstam. My name is Halberstam, so it's the Halberstam dynasty of actually Tzans, Hasidim. And so he grew up in this family that, you know, all his uncles or cousins, they were all Rebbes from different groups. And, you know, the Rebbe of Tzans is his father's second cousin or something like that. So he grew up, he was born in Tveria, but when he was 10, he moved to Netanya, and his parents actually helped to settle the neighborhood of Kiryat Tzans, where Tzans Hasidim live. And
that
when
is
he was
the neighborhood, that is where the Laniado Hospital is?
Laniado Hospital is, yes. And so he grew up there, and, you know, my father had a very interesting childhood. He told us many stories through the years, but they were very, very poor. But, you know, in those times in Israel, like right around the time of the Independence War, most people living in Israel were extremely, extremely poor. They just had bread and margarine to eat, but my father always says it was also such a happy time. They had nothing, but they were very happy with what they had. And when he was around 14, his father sent him, 14 or 15, to Yerushalayim, to the Tzanz Yeshiva. But it just didn't work out for my father. It wasn't a good suit for him. He was more of like a energetic boy, and a lot of the teachers there were coming from the war, and it was very heavy and it was very strict, and it just didn't fit for my father. And it was his uncle's yeshiva, and he was thrown out. And his parents had nowhere to send him. There was no yeshiva that wanted to take a boy in the middle of the year, especially with their reputation like my father's. So they had no choice. They took him to the only yeshiva that would take him, and that was Chabad in Lud, which is near Tel Aviv. And and so he said he came when he was 15 years old in the middle of the year to Chabad. And as soon as he came to this yeshiva, he was embraced and welcomed with open arms. Everyone was really kind to him, and everyone wanted to be his friend and to teach him the teachings of Chassidut. And he said it was almost as if they took him out of a place where he was drowning and lifted him up. And he says that till today always, that if he hadn't joined this yeshiva, he would have left Torah and mitzvos, because it was just the environment where he was in. He wasn't able to grow in his service to Hashem. So it's also a message that every person has their journey of how they need to serve Hashem, and Hashem sometimes guides them to find the way where they need to be. And my grandmother actually told me this, that before she sent my father to Chabad Yeshiva, he never used to daven, and he was never really involved in his Judaism the way they would have liked him to be. And when he came back 2 months later for Pesach, she said she had a different son, and she knew that this was the right place for him to be. And the story goes on, because when my father wanted to go back the next year, his father said, yeah, I have connections in Yeshiva Smir, maybe a Litvish yeshiva is better for you. And my father said, no, I want to go back to Chabad. And they said, no, it's not for our family. It was just for a few months. And my grandmother knew it was the right place for him. And she woke him up very early in the morning, and she gave him some money, and she sent him on the train, and she said, just go. Behind his father's back, and he went. And the rest is history. When he was 18 years old, he moved to New York, and he never came back to Israel. And he really joined the fibers of the Rebbe's court in New York. He came there as a young student, and he was asked to make food for the Rebbetsin Hamadina, actually the wife of the previous Rebbe. She was an elderly woman, and they asked him to take care of her or to make food for her. I don't remember exactly. And like that, he started to grow a relationship with the Rebbe's mother-in-law, and then sister-in-law, and then the Rebbe's wife. And throughout the years, he was very, very close to the family of the Rebbe and helping out a lot. And he had many stories. And he became also the photographer of the Rebbe. He took videos and pictures, all those videos and pictures that people have of the whatever was going on in the Chabad headquarters were taken by my father. Not all of them, but a lot of them, of the Hasidic gatherings known as Verbrengans. And there's something else that my father made in the 70s with a few other men. There were people, Hasidim all over the world, who really wanted to be connected to the teachings of the Rebbe, which the Rebbe, inspired the mostly. We can say the Rebbe was a holy man. He was a tzaddik. He did miracles. There's so many stories, but for me personally, as a person who follows the stream of Chabad, I always say that the most important part of being Chabad for me is learning the teachings of the Rebbe, which basically takes Torah that we're learning and adds such a beautiful perspective and twist to it, and makes it into this kind of Yiddishkeit, Judaism, that you celebrate with so much meaning and so much joy. And for Hasidim around the world, it was so important for them to be able to hear these messages that the Rebbe was sharing on a weekly or sometimes daily basis. And they weren't able to do that. It was before the time of the internet. So one of the things that my father actually invented was a hookup system. He made a machine. I don't know, he didn't go to college, my father. He was just self-educated, but he made a machine with a lot of trial and error of basically connecting a lot of telephone lines to 2770 Chabad World Headquarters. And then people from around the world, from every city, bought a phone line. And then when they wanted to hear the teaching, when the Rebbe was giving a farbrengen, a Hasidic gathering, or giving a sicha where he would teach things about Torah, they would be able to call into this phone number, and then it would be broadcasted in their country. So I think that there was for sure a Dutch phone number as well, and people in Holland were able to maybe call in and listen as well. I'm not sure.
I remember that it happened a few times in my parents' home, that Hasidim, whatever, people would come together and they would call the number, and then they would be able to hear the Rebbe. But it didn't happen very often. It had to be like for very special Hasidic dates, like when there was a very special date, like Yud Shvat or Yud Beis Tammuz, something like that, Yud Es Kislev, for very special Chabad dates, then they would have it, but not so often. And anyway, I was still small then, but I do
but it was
remember.
probably very expensive.
And very expensive, right?
Yeah. So, but
extremely
this gave
expensive.
opportunity. I mean, there's videos also of people sitting in like auditoriums, like hundreds of people sitting and just listening. And, you know, to understand it, the Rebbe was a leader of hundreds and thousands of Jewish people. And for them to be able to actually participate while they're so far away was a huge honor for my father to be able to gift that to so many people. And actually now he has his office in 770 Chabad World Headquarters, this hookup system, and he turned it into sort of like a museum and a visitor center, and people come and he tells them all about this time period where they, before the internet, where they connected all the followers of the Rebbe from all over the world. And what's really interesting is that even there was an article in the New York Times about it, because they were so blown away about this system. It didn't exist anywhere in the world. So he got a little fame for it as well. But that's basically my father. A lot of people know him. And
now,
my
let's
mother
get back to you, okay?
Okay. Yeah. So no, and my mother actually comes from Italy. So, and her parents got married in Holland. So I came back here to my roots. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I think the reason I was saying before, basically, that both my parents didn't come from Chabad backgrounds, but they came to Chabad because that was the journey and the way Hashem wanted them to raise their family. And my mother actually became Chabad from the Chabad in her community in Milan. So a rabbi and Rebbetsin Gorelik, they were the rabbi and Rebbetsin of her shul, and she became very connected with them and started learning the teachings of the Rebbe Hasidic teachings. And from there, she also became a self-proclaimed Chabad person, and she married my father and raised us in the Chabad community of Crown Heights in the Chabad way. So that's my background, where I come from. Israeli, Italian, I guess. And
okay, very interesting. I actually never knew your mother was Italian. I always thought she was Israeli.
No.
Okay.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah, so you mentioned about being in a girls' school. Now, I have read over the years, whatever, you get these different opinions about separate schools for boys and for girls. And what I have found is that, especially when we're talking about high school, that actually students work much better when they are separated, when they have their own school system for the boys and a separate one for the girls. So I just found it very interesting, and I think that I agree with it when I see how young people, when they're busy just with each other, then a lot of the schoolwork is less important, let's say. But for you, you did not have a choice, let's say, right? In your neighborhood, there wasn't a mixed Jewish school where you could go. Do you think that you are missing out? Can you tell something about that?
Sure. Actually, where I grew up in Crown Heights, there was mainly Jewish private schools and public schools, and all the private schools. There was actually, when I was growing up, now there is much more private schools for girls in Crown Heights, but when I was growing up, there was one girls' school and 2 boys' schools. and they were huge, enormous. So I went to Bet Rivka, Base Rivka, however we call it. And, you know, we were just in one grade, which is like the whole group 3, let's say, was 120 girls. So, and we grew up from group 3 all the way till the end of high school together. And, you know, I can't say the experience of going to a co-ed school because I never went to one, but I know that the sisterhood and the love that we all had for each other growing up was enormous. It was like a family, but a really big one. And it could be that this kind of school structure didn't work for everyone that was in my school. For some people, could be if they were maybe more introverted, that it was overwhelming for them. And, you know, now with much more educational awakening, I think in all sectors of Jewish life, there's smaller schools or specialized schools for people who have their specific needs. But when I was growing up, there was just one school. We all went there. And, you know, elementary school was not easy for me. I wasn't a very easy child. I had a lot of energy. And I wasn't so studious. So that was a little bit of a challenge. But when I came to high school, things really changed for me. And the reason was because I went to an amazing high school. We had a principal. You know, when we think of the director of a school, we think of someone who's a little bit scary or intimidating. She was the most kindest woman who really cared about every single student. And if a student wasn't studious, she didn't have nothing to do, because we had so much opportunity for growth and leadership in our school that we got to express ourselves in other ways besides for only studying. So maybe I wasn't the most studious student, but we had the once-a-year school performance where everyone got to be in it. It wasn't such a thing that, oh, you can't be in it. Everyone was able to be in it. Everyone was accepted to be part of it. And it was so beautiful. We would sing and we would dance in a big auditorium, and it was a really special occasion. And one of the things that I really want to point out about my high school experience is that they gave us responsibility. And when you give young people responsibility, that's how they become leaders. And from a very young age, from the age of 14, you know, when I was in the first year, we had to go to old elderly a home for the elderly, and we had to give out Shabbos candles and sing for the elderly people, and to make relationships with them and talk with them. On Shabbos, we had to go and make gatherings for children and play games with them. And these were part of our obligations as students. It was part of our mark. Like if we wanted to go to the next class, we needed to do these things. It was part of our school curriculum. And when I was already 16, 17, we had to do things for younger age, for like 12-year-old girls. We had to meet with them once a month and do special activities with them, pizza parties, and all kinds of ways to inspire the youth while we were ourselves young. But we were already being guided to inspire people who were younger than us and give them passion and joy for the Jewish life that we were leading. And when you're 17 years old and you prepare a Purim party with a group of another 10 girls for 500 girls, it's on your shoulders and you do it. It gives you an enormous power. Like, wow, I just made a party for 500 people. That went well. We all had fun. We danced, we sang, we did all kinds of things, and we made a whole schedule. It gives you so much energy and self-confidence that you can do anything is possible. And I think that's one of the things that I always am so thankful to the school I went to, is that we were constantly being pumped with the message that our goal in life is to go out into the world and to share the joy of Torah and mitzvahs with any Jew that we encounter, and to be an example for an Ar L'Goyim, like to be an example for all the nations of the world, how to be a person of values, how to be a person of kindness, and all those things were lessons that were being pumped into us throughout our high school years. So when you leave that system, everyone has to find their own journey and their own path of how they practice their Torah and mitzvahs. But with this message banging in your head all the time, you're very bound to continue that for the next generation, to your own children and to the community wherever you end up in. So that's my high school experience.
Wow, that's quite amazing what you're telling here about giving the power to the young people. Wow, that's very, very special. And well, I guess for those who know you, you are very busy doing that all the time, the whole day long, I think. And so
Well,
yeah.
it's something that I didn't realize about my high school experience. It wasn't all peaches and roses. I was a regular teenager. We had our ups, we had our downs, we had our difficulties. But at the end of the day, now as like, a mother and living in another country that has a very different mentality, I started to think about my background and where I came from. And these things, this is what I realized, that teaching young people, not only teaching them, making them be leaders, giving them responsibility, makes them into the people who they're going to be in the future. They're not going to sit on the sidelines. They're going to take a stand when they see that there's something lacking. I don't feel I have a choice. It's like my calling. I have to push myself because I don't know any other way. I don't know. I'm not like, it's just how I was taught, and I'm so thankful for it. Yeah.
Okay, so you made, with the last sentence, you made it clear that you are happy with it. It could be that maybe it would be oppressing you maybe in your life, but you say that for you, that's not the case.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I know we're now in like a moment where a lot of people, like, let's say, watch Unorthodox, and I have this, there was also a live about it, and have this idea that living like, a religious life can be really like constricting. I mean, every community has its dynamic and every community has their way. But, for me, from my experience growing up in the Chabad environment, really told me that Yiddishkeit, Judaism, Yodendom, however you want to call it, it's yours. And you have to take it and you have to make it your own. And you cannot do it for your mother, and you cannot do it for your father, and you can't do it for your neighbor. You have to do it for yourself. Your connection with Hashem is your most valuable and precious connection. And no one has the right to get involved with it or like poke into it. It's something so sacred and so special. And it's something that you need to find for yourself. And every person, it's their own path and their own journey. And, and I also had to find my own path within my Chabad upbringing that suits me as a person and fulfills me as a person. And I'm still finding it. And I think, we're never there yet until 120. We're always searching. We're always looking to find the best path that suits for our family, for our spiritual health, our emotional health. All those things come into play as we go on our journey for growing as a Jewish person.
Okay, so let's journey now to the Netherlands, because after you got married, at a certain point, you came to the Netherlands. So first we want to know, like, how is it as an American girl to come into this kikkerland, this cold kikkerlandje? Can you tell something about that?
Yes, actually, it's not so bad here, guys. I really like Holland. People don't believe me when I say it, but I really feel that I'm in the place where I need to be in my life. I can't say that it didn't come with challenges when I came here. We were here for 8 years. This February was 8 years when I came here 8 years ago. It was a little bit of a culture shock. I was excited. I was, I think, 25. I was excited for a new adventure, new culture, a new country to discover. And I was lucky that we got an apartment in Rivierenbuurt, which was closer to the city. So and my kids were still little, and I only had 2 kids then. So I really got to like immerse myself in the Dutch neighborhood and explore, going to the markets, going to the museums. I really like immersed myself into the culture of the city so I can really feel where I am. And I also tried to start learning Dutch. Actually, Anna M.G. Schmidt was my first teacher because I read all of her books, and through Yip and Janneke and Floddertje and Pluk van de Petterflat, all those books actually really helped me learn Dutch and how to read it and how to speak it, hoe te praten in Nederland. Maar ik ga blijven Engels praten. So really, that's really was like my entry into Holland. I was still, I think, I always say that the younger you are when you make a big transition, the easier it is because you're still very idealistic and you're excited to make a change in your life. So it was, in the beginning, it was a little bit lonely. I didn't know anybody, but slowly, I started to meet people. and get involved. Whenever there was an event, I tried to get involved so I can meet more people. And I started to do, small things in my house, invite friends over, and slowly, I got used to this kikkerland, as you called it. I love animals, and that there was a boerderij so close to our house, and I can go with the children and play with the geitjes and the eendjes and the rabbits and the cavias. For me, was just so, I felt like I'm in paradise. How could it be that just 5 minutes on the bike and I'm in a farm? I didn't have that. I'm from Brooklyn. This is like, however city Amsterdam is, it's more suburban than anything I grew up with, and I appreciate it very much. So I'm very happy that I came to Holland, and I love raising my family in this country. It's a beautiful country to raise a family, and the people are really nice, actually. I know Dutch people always say things about, oh, we're so this and we're so that, but the Dutch people they're very honest. They tell you what they think, very straightforward. But I actually learned to appreciate it, and I'm starting to get a little Dutch myself. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the meantime, you, besides taking care of your family, you also started working in school, teaching the little kids. Now, I happen to have a nephew in your class, and so I get these amazing reports about Juffrouw Chaja. How is it to teach in the cheder? Like, what does it give you?
So actually, my background is in special education, and for many years in New York, I worked with autistic children. And then when I started to have children, I moved to working in preschool. And when I moved from working with really special needs children to typically developing children, it really made me very excited. And I never even thought that I would be a teacher. And when you're aware of the developmental challenge that children have, and then you come to a classroom where children can speak and children can talk and express to you what they need, you all of a sudden feel like, wow, it's like a miracle. And for me, it was really eye-opening. And so I started to teach in preschool, and I just fell in love with teaching. And I never even knew that about myself. I never thought I'd be a teacher. I was a terrible student. So I didn't ever think that teaching was my calling. And actually, when I moved to Holland, I was working for a few years. For 3 years, I worked in a school for autistic children in Amsterdam West. It's a really special school. I love that place. Stichting Ark. Always like to give them credit because it's for a lot of international kids go there, and it's a really, really beautiful school to work that I worked in, and I was so grateful to it. And I was working there for 3 years. Well, I took a break in between, and then I joined him again. And one of the things while I was working there, and I loved it, and I loved the children, I felt like, I came to a certain point after my daughter was born that it's time for me to give to my community. And, my children go to the cheder, and they love going to school there. And we have really nice experience there. They're learning so much. They have wonderful friends, really, really nice experience with having a small school, coming from a big city to send my children to a school where they just have 10 children in their class. It's so intimate. It's like a family. And I thought, I think it's time for me to give back to my children's school and to my community. And so I left the school I was working in, and last year there was an opportunity in the cheder. A teacher had a baby, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna try. I think my Nederlands is goed genoeg. Ik ga proberen een Joodse juf in de Joodse school te zijn, te lesgeven. And that's what I did. And I never did first grade, group 3. It was a challenge. I needed to prepare a lot and do a lot of work for it. But I'm now at this point where I'm really very grateful for being able to educate the next generation of Jewish children. And as a teacher, my biggest goal is to teach values and to teach the children how beautiful and how joyous it is to celebrate our mitzvahs and to do it with joy and happiness. We sing a lot, and we really learn about Jewish values, how to be a better person. And with everything that we're teaching, whether it's the Parsha, the weekly Torah portion, or it's the Chumash, and we're learning about Abraham and Sarah, Imenu, we're learning all the time the values that the Torah is teaching us, the values of kindness, the values of problem solving, the values of now I'm blanking of being we just did Bereshit, the days of creation, and how Hashem created us to bring holiness to the world, and we did a whole theme about it. And you ask the children in my class, why is the world holy? And they'll say, because of me, I make the world holy. The children really know it. And that's really, for me, if the children could go with these messages of values throughout their whole life, obviously we want them to read Hebrew very well. We want them to know everything you teach them out, that they could spit it back to you. But what's most important as a teacher for me is that the children have this sense of identity, of how special and unique their existence is for the world, in order for the world to exist. So that's my goal as a teacher.
Yeah, well, we can see the passion when you're talking. Maybe at a certain point you would even consider giving classes to other teachers how they should be teaching.
Oh, you know what? I really think every teacher has their style and their personality and their way of giving it over. This is my way. And if someone would want to ask me a question or to get ideas on how to integrate a values curriculum into a Jewish curriculum, I'm so happy to teach people about it. I learned it from a teacher in New York, Maura Ginsburg. I don't know if you know her. She has a school in Borough Park. I took a workshop with her, and she spoke about this, teaching midot, all of that, focusing on values that we learn from the Torah teachings, and making that her focus in everything that she does. And when she gave me this class, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I knew exactly the kind of teacher I needed to be. It was really a very big turning point for me as a teacher when I took this workshop. It happened by chance that I was there, and I was really thankful that I was there, because I was still trying to find my equilibrium as a teacher, and who I was and what kind of way I would go as a teacher. And when I heard this idea of building values through Torah learning, I was blown away, and I realized that this is the future of Jewish education, building social emotional skills and building critical thinking skills, teaching children how to solve problems and to think with their own mind, but using the values of the Torah at the same time. Like, asking a child, how do you feel today? And what are you thankful to Hashem for? Believe it or not, children have a hard time answering a question like that. But the more we speak about it, they come up with so many things. I'm thankful that tomorrow my sister's coming from Australia, or, they come up with all kinds of things. It's so minute, but it makes children so much more aware of everything that they have in their life. And this is just one example, but it goes on and on and on. So if anyone would want to learn how to incorporate such a value system into their Jewish education for their children or their classes, I'm always happy to share ideas.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Okay, now there's another thing that you are very much involved since a few years, and that's the organization called Chaja.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us first what this organization is about?
Yes. So around a year and a half ago, I started an organization with a few other people. And the idea was to make an organization in Holland that's specifically for women. We have all kinds of organizations, and our organization is called Stichting Haisha, which means the woman. And its core principle is really based on the idea that a woman is a leader of her home and community, whether she's married or single, or she's a mother, or she has children. Her voice is very important, and her wisdom is very, very much needed in our Jewish community. And we have programs that focus specifically on mothers, and we also have programs that are in general for all women. And we started to do different events that bring women together to learn about their Jewish values and to learn about their Jewish heritage, connect to their roots, and empower themselves for who they are as women, and bring it to their homes, their families, and eventually to their community. And we are connected with an organization called Momentum, which is a women's organization that has partners all over the world. And what really the whole idea of momentum is to inspire mothers to bring Jewish values into their home and to activate and inspire their families and communities. And one of the things that Momentum does is it takes women to Israel. And we were really lucky to join Momentum. The idea is that we put together a group in Holland of mothers who would like to go to Israel. And it's the trip is fully funded by Haisha. We had to fundraise for it and put together money for it. And the women only have to pay for their ticket to Israel. And we spend a week in Israel with 250 other mothers from around the world who are coming all together from all different backgrounds on the Jewish spectrum. Most of them are not necessarily practicing Judaism, but they have some kind of connection, or they want to build a connection towards Judaism. And what we really did was, we were divided on buses. Every group was 50 women on a bus. But we also had some events that we were all 250 of us, and we danced and we sang, and we had amazing speeches and lectures and amazing food. And we had this amazing experience. The idea is that we start off in Israel and then we continue learning for a whole year. And it's called the Momentum Year. And we actually just closed our Momentum Year. We had a group of 5 women, and we went to Israel and we came back and we met every month together, and we learned different things connected to Jewish thought and identity and values. And it was really, really an amazing experience. And we're, Bezrat Hashem, going to be going again next year to Israel. So, our registration, we'll let you know when the registration is open again. We were supposed to be joining a trip in November, but I think we just canceled that. We will not be joining November because there's too much uncertainty. But Bezrat Hashem will be going in either May or March of 2021 again. So we're going to put together a group closer to that time. But basically the idea is that when women are joining together, supporting each other, learning together and connecting to each other, they bring that home to their families, and their families will get invigorated and inspired. And the idea is to continue the Jewish nation and to continue growing and learning as a Jewish person. So that's really what we're doing at Haisha. And becoming this bonded band of women. And, I don't know how much longer I have, but there's something short I want to share about Haisha.
Sure,
okay.
No problem.
So we actually wrote a newsletter for Rosh Hashanah. We gave it out in many communities about all of our activities and how we started. And there was something really special. We made the cover of our magazine. It had a very old-fashioned looking logo on it called Haisha. And what I discovered, one of the people who was helping me, actually, I'll give credit to him, David Surfos, with certain parts in Haisha, he messaged me, I found something on the internet about an organization that existed before the war, and it was called Haisha, and he sent me a picture. So I looked at it and I thought, how strange. And I started to, Google it and research in Dutch, archives, and basically from 1921, I think, until 1939 or 39, no. Yeah, until 1939, there was an organization from the Josef Vrouwenraad, and it was called Haisha. And these women wrote a magazine called Haisha. And if you looked at their, mission statement, it was very much similar to our mission statement, which was strengthening the identity of Jewish people through the women, door to Frau, and that's exactly what our mission statement is. Strengthening the community through the women, connecting to Zionism. One of our big things is connecting to Israel as a Jewish person, and there was just so many parallels that this organization had, and I thought, this organization had to close because of the war. And it was never reinstituted after the war. And Hashem put it into my mind and the people on my board's mind to name our organization Haisha. We did not know about this organization that existed before the war, but there was a voice that existed and it needed to be heard again in this community. And I said, we are standing on the shoulders of the Haishas of the 1920s and the 30s. And it's our responsibility. We need to continue what they started, to invigorate our community and our Jewish identity through the power of the women. And when I discovered this, it it showed me Hashem really sends us exactly what we need to do. He shows us the way. He shows us the journey we need to travel on, and he really he's our guide. He really, this is for me, that I get to give a voice to a voice that existed in the past, that we get to continue something that existed without even knowing it. We're giving almost like, I don't know which women started Ha'isha of the 1920s, but I don't know if they all survived, but I can say for sure some of them for sure didn't survive. So it's our job now to take up what they couldn't continue and empower the women.
Wow, that is quite a story. When I'm finished with this, I can start searching Ha'isha, see if we can find it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It really existed. And there's newspaper clippings in the Yotze Storch Museum website. They have also some things. It's really interesting. So that's why I made our magazine cover as a dedication to the women, the original Ha'ishas. So we can give them, we can remember them. Yeah.
Right.
And it wasn't only in Amsterdam, it was Jewish women all over the Netherlands. It was a real organization. And they also provided classes and lectures to strengthen the Jewish identity. I said, okay, that's it. This is something that it's not stopping. We're going for this. We're going to keep it going. So ladies, if you're on here, you're all welcome to join Ha'isha. And we actually have something coming up very soon. I don't have all the details yet, but we will be having a garden party before the summer. And sorry for the men on here, but it's a women's event. And I will send out the information when it's happening.
Okay. We have another few minutes to go. Maybe you could tell us something about educating your own children. How I remember one time there was a little clip, your son was explaining how unhealthy it is, certain foods. I don't remember which food it was. That was very cute. Maybe you can tell something more about your own family.
Okay, so I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and they are adorable and I love them all very much. And I have to say, and I'm going to be very honest, that educating other people's children is much easier than educating your own children. It's a fact. I think any educator will admit it. It's something that I have to also recognize and work on every single day. But I don't always like to be an example, because I say I'm not a perfect mother. I have my ups, I have my downs. I have days where it's easier for me and days that it's harder for me. But all in all, what I really love to do as a mother is discover things with my children, whether it's going on a hunt, or I like to have special experiences with them. Like we went to Paris last year, and the day before we made our house into like a French school. They had to learn words in French and memorize them. They had to learn the history of Paris. Things like that. They sometimes don't like when I try to be a teacher on them, but and then when we went to Paris, I prepared a scavenger hunt. We had to find all different kinds of things, and they had to check it off, or they had to taste a croissant, a kosher croissant, or a macaron, or we tried to make it really interactive, because Paris is not such a kid city, and we actually had a really fun time with that. And made it a really fun experience. So I like to do things like that with my children. Now over Corona, we actually bought a butterfly house, and we bought the little rupsjes. Yeah, and the butterfly house came right away, but the rupsjes only came 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, when the kids were already back in school. But it was an amazing experience, because we really saw them going into the cocoons. And my daughter, who's 2, is reading now Rupsje Nooit Genoeg. So she was very excited about it. And it was an amazing experience to discover the nature of the beauty of Hashem's world with the children, to see how something comes and metamorphosizes into a butterfly. And we actually let the last butterfly out to fly away today, and it was very special when we let them fly away, and it was just an amazing experience. I said, next year I'm going to do it for my class, because it's so nice to really see and to show the children, really, for me, how Hashem made everything so minute and so distinct and unique, and to show them that beauty, for me, is I really like and enjoy to do. We did a lot of nice things over Corona. It wasn't always easy. I think when we share about parenting, it's really important to be honest with other mothers, because, if we always show ourselves that we have it all and we're perfect and we never get angry and we're super moms and, we're always taking our kids on trips and we're always smiling and we're always happy, I don't think that anyone is really always like that. And if they are, they're very special or they're crazy. It's either or, but I like to be honest. It's not always easy. Sometimes I get upset. Sometimes I have to apologize. And sometimes I have it all together and I'm, being the best example that I can be. But I think being real and being authentic to our children and to other parents is the only way to do. That's how we support each other. That's how we are there for each other, when we're honest with one another. And, I always say the pictures that we show on social media are not always how it is. And it's important to say that, because, we all have our good days and our hard days. And for me, being a mother is having all those moments and experiencing them. And if it was a hard moment, to learn from it and move on to the next one. That's how I like to mother my children, and my kids also, we talk about things a lot. And for me, that's very important, that we talk about feelings and we talk about ideas of things that are happening in the world, with, let's say, what's happening in America now with racism. That's something we've discussed with our family. We had discussions about it, about this topic, or when things about North Korea happen in the news, the children also learn newsbericht in school. So they're always coming home with things they heard about what's going on in the world. So then we talk about it and we ask the children what they think about it. And that makes them also more aware and, part of understanding society and what's going on in the world, and how to also be compassionate and to understand different communities and different people. And that's really, for me, I always say, when we having these discussions, doesn't always happen. I come and say, this is all I really wanted, when I was thinking of raising my family, is that we should talk about things and we should know about things and we should really just have this open discussion flowing all the time. So I'm thankful when we're able to have that in my family, and I hope we merit to have that for many years to come. So that's really my message.
Okay, very nice. Do you have like one last something you want to give over, let's say, to the younger people that might be listening, like something important for them to use in their day-to-day life?
Well, sure. Okay, so I don't know if you noticed, but I'm never at a loss of words. I always have a lot to say. I can go talking for another 2 hours.
Well, we have just a few.
Okay, well, in short, what I do want to say is that I think it's really important for people to know their power. And, it's always nice to say, oh, you have so much power, you can do anything, but it's more than that. Hashem put you in this world for a reason. You are a holy being. You are a special being. And the fact that you exist means that the world cannot exist without you. And I always, for me, if that's a message that I can give to anyone who's listening, that they know their value and their contribution to this world, to make it a place of godliness and holiness, then if you can feel that, it will invigorate your life. It will give you a mission and a goal for your future. And it will also influence the people around you. When we are walking through this world and traveling through this world with this knowledge on our shoulders, that every good thing that I do to light a spark in this world to bring godliness down into this world makes it a holy environment. And who doesn't want world peace? I know I want it. I want Mashiach to come. I want that we come to an era in time where people are always kind to each other and loving towards one another and in peace and harmony. And the only way to do it is if it starts with ourselves, starts with me and every other person, to know that it's up to us to make this world a better place. And I hope I can do my part, and join me, everybody. That's it.
Thank you very, very much. That was very inspiring. We wish you a lot of success in your journey and everybody in their journey. And
Amen.
let's all bring together the peace in the world by the coming of Mashiach. Thank you.
Amen. All right. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody. It was really nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. I will send a request, if you don't mind, to come on your mailing list for the upcoming events, if it's possible.
Sure. Oh, if you want to find out more, you can visit our website, haisha.nl, or on Facebook, Stichting Haisha. And on Instagram, we are haisha.nl.
All right.
Instagram.
I don't have any social media, but if it's okay, can I maybe ask Sarah to forward you my message or something, or my email address or something?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for your story.
No
very,
problem.
very inspiring.
Okay, have a good night. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Chaja.
Nice to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night.
The next speaker isn't here yet.
All right,
Sarah,
I'm gonna go now.
I just get an app from him. You have to speak some 5 minutes or so. He's 5 minutes late.
Okay.
Okay, after make a break.
Okay, I'm gonna go now. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you
Good night. Thank
listening
you.
to me.
Thank you. Bye.
Dankjewel, Sarah.
Alsjeblieft.
Heel erg leuk. Ik vraag me af, wanneer komt de interview van mevrouw Rebbetsin Sara Katzman? Want we zullen natuurlijk ook, we zijn ook heel geïnteresseerd om jouw levensverhaal en visie en kijk op het leven te horen.
Ja, dat weet ik niet. Ik ben nog niet uitgenodigd.
Ik wil je wel uitnodigen, Sarah.
Nou, ik heb een paar. De komende weken zijn al gevuld. Dus we gaan het rustig aan bekijken. Zien hoe het verloopt.
Ja, het zou wel leuk zijn. Ik denk dat ook heel interessant zou zijn om te horen. Want ik denk dat jouw verhaal ook heel interessant is. Ik hoorde net ook Crown Heights en teaching in Crown Heights. En natuurlijk de background in het algemeen is ook heel interessant. En levensloop.
Ja. Oké, we gaan deze sessie nu stoppen. En dan begint er een nieuwe met Rabbijn Stiefel. Oké?
Goed.
Goedenavond allemaal.
Shabbat shalom.
Goedenavond.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Kan ik
Shabbat shalom.
Johan.